Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to give you my top 10 whiskeys that I reviewed in 2022. The styles of whiskeys that I review every year is going to change depending on what I'm studying. In 2021, I ended the year with a study of Irish whiskeys. I began 2022 with a study of independent Isla whiskeys. Then I did some Texas whiskeys, and then I began my study for the Council of Whiskey Masters, in which I was doing a series on distillery profiles and reviewing a whiskey from each distillery that I needed to study. So in 2022, I reviewed 33 whiskeys, 4 Texas whiskeys, and 29 Scotch whiskeys. That series on Scotch distillery profiles will continue on into 2023, and it will be mostly Scotch whiskeys going in through 23 and 24 because of my studying for the Council of Whiskey Masters. So coming in at number 10 is the Glenmority 12-year-old Malaga cask Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. So this is a challenging bottle to find now, but if you can get your hands on one, I highly recommend it. Most Scotch whiskeys are going to be bourbon cask or sherry cask. Occasionally come across some red wine cask or a rum cask. This has a really unique profile, an excellent development on it. So if you can get your hands on one, I highly recommend it. Coming in at number 9 is the Glenfarclas 105 Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. This is essentially a cask strength, heavily sherried cask whiskey that sort of flies under the radar. It's widely available. Whiskey tubers don't talk about it that much. We tend to rave a lot about, cask strength whiskeys, but this one doesn't get the love that I think it deserves. I gave it 90 points, and if you can get your hands on one, I highly recommend it. This one's halfway gone, and when it's gone, I'll definitely be buying another. Coming in at number 8 is the Glenmority 18-year-old Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey. So I gave this one 92 points. This is an excellent example of a first fill bourbon cask. If you're a bourbon lover and you want to try some Scotch whiskeys that you think you might like, it has a lot of those classic bourbon cask notes, real nice development, a lot of kapow for only being 47.2% alcohol by volume, real nice development. Highly recommend the Glenmority 18-year-old, particularly if you want to know what a first fill bourbon cask should be like. Coming in at number 7 is the Glenrothes 21 Parliament Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. So I gave this one 92 points. It is expensive. This is $200 and up. And so I sort of question, is it really worth that much? The conclusion I came to is it all depends on you. There are other sherry bombs out there that are going to be a lot less, but if you are a sherry cask fanatic, then this is definitely one you got to have. An absolutely spectacular whiskey, definitely the flagship of Glenrothes Distillery, the Glenrothes 21 Parliament. Coming in at number 6, the Big Smoke 60 Isla Blended Malt Scotch Whiskey. So when I did my independent Isla series, I was not expecting a lot out of them. These are the bottles that may not necessarily be from your more well-known independent bottlers. They tend to be the ones you see at the big chain stores that you kind of look at and you kind of question, I don't know, is it worth spending my money on these ones? So I wanted to try a bunch of them and let my viewers know which ones might be worth buying. This one really blew my mind. It really exceeded expectations, and before doing this video, I tasted it again to make sure, am I really certain that this belongs on my top 10? And it definitely does. I gave it 93 points. Definitely worth checking out if you can still find them. Now, the challenge might be is there variation from bottling to bottling? I don't know. All I can tell you is this one, the development, the depth of flavor, has a little bit of dryness on the back end, but it's got real nice toffee notes, and it's got a real nice development, a lot of breadth and width of flavor, and it's one that's drinkable neat. To me, it seems like it's actually got some nice aged whiskeys. I'm talking 12 and older, although there is no age statement on this whiskey. It tastes like an older whiskey. Highly recommend it if you can get your hands on the Big Smoke 60. Coming in at number 5 is the Bowmore 21-year-old Aston Martin limited edition Isla single malt Scotch whiskey. So this whiskey was also reviewed by Rob over at Whiskey in the Six. This is an absolutely spectacular whiskey. Honestly, I've never been really impressed with Bowmore Distillery. It's more been, say, the independent bottles from Bowmore that I've tended to really like. But this one is absolutely fantastic, and they were as hard to find, but also quickly was jumping up on the secondary market. The prices went up and up and up, but still, if you can get your hands on one, if you can afford it, I highly recommend it. I gave it 93 points. Coming in at number 4 is the Glengoyne Cask Strength Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. So this is an absolutely superb whiskey. I gave this one 94 points. There can be a little variation from the cask strength from year to year, but if you can get your hands on these, I would say these are extremely high quality price ratio whiskeys. They are a non-age statement, but an absolutely superb whiskey that any sherry cask lover should not be without. Coming in at number 3 is the Vaconas Froak Texas Single Malt Whiskey. So this one can be a little challenging to get your hands on, but if you can get one, I highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best whiskeys I've ever had coming out of Vaconas Distillery, and I'm quite a Vaconas fan. Now, this, like a lot of other Vaconas whiskeys, isn't really a bottle of whiskey. It's a bottle of 2-3 whiskeys. Trying to drink this neat, it feels like your fillings of your teeth are going to fall out. It's really got a lot of punch to it. It's very intense. It can come across actually as a little too witty, but this is not a whiskey that at this ABV you're going to want to drink neat. So maybe, almost a 2-to-1 ratio between the whiskey and the water, and you're going to absolutely love this whiskey. I highly recommend if you can get your hands on a bottle of Froak. Coming in at number 2 is the Budhaven 12-year-old cask strength Isla single malt Scotch whiskey. This is an absolutely superb whiskey. Almost made it to number 1. My number 3, number 2, and number 1 are all at 95 points. This is the 2021 version, and I absolutely loved it. Some of my fellow whiskey tubers have been reviewing the 2022 version, and from what they say, the 2022 is even better than the 2021. So if you can get your hands on the 2022, I would highly recommend get your hands on the 2022. But if you can't, you can get a 21. I highly recommend it. Absolutely superb. Budhaven is probably now my favorite distillery on Isla. Coming in at number 1 in my whiskey of the year, the Andalusia Revenant Oak Heavily Peated Texas Single Malt Whiskey. So this is not their normal peated Revenant Oak. This one is a limited release. It has more peat. It didn't say heavily peated on it, but it has more peat than their other Revenant Oak. And they use an Irish peat, which has a really unique character to it. This is bottled at 131.62 proof, but it is very enjoyable neat. The development, the depth, and the range of flavor is absolutely superb. Now, I had 3 whiskeys at 95 points. Why did I make this one number 1? Because it really stands out head and shoulders above anything else in its class. My only regret is that I didn't buy more than one. So again, I know people get upset about this. Andalusia doesn't have a lot of distribution. So if you're ever in Texas, maybe you're going to the Bashers Bowl and you can drop in at Andalusia and they have something like this available, I highly recommend it. So I want to say congratulations to Andalusia. Everyone down there, keep doing what you're doing because this is absolutely superb. All right, until next time, Slanjiva. Should have bought 2 bottles. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.